welcome to this second press conference in the context of the plenary assembly of the Canadian Catholic Conference of Bishops. Ça me fait plaisir de vous accueillir à ce deuxième point de presse de la plénière de la Conférence des évêques catholiques du Canada. Mon nom est Paul-André Durocher, archevêque de Gatineau et vice-président de la conférence. I've been asked to present quickly in both official languages a bit of what has happened today at our plenary conference. This morning we started with a wonderful event. We received the Major Archbishop of the Ukrainian Catholic Church, who is visiting Canada these days in the context of the 100th anniversary of the arrival of the first Ukrainian Catholic bishop. So he brought us words of welcome, which were greatly appreciated by the whole assembly. I think the applause of the bishops at the end of his comments were a sign of the affection in which the Latin bishops hold the Ukrainian bishops here in Canada. The Ukrainian Catholic bishops, eparchs, are members of the conference of the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops. Donc cette première rencontre des salutations de la part de l'archevêque majeur des Ukrainiens catholiques a été bien appréciée. Nous avons des commissions nationales qui dirigent beaucoup de travail de la plénière. Et une de ces commissions nationales, c'est la commission de justice et de paix. Et cette année, ils ont voulu animer une réflexion sur la crise économique actuelle au Canada et son implication pour le travail de pastoral social des évêques du Canada. So our national commissions animate the work of the plenary very much. And one of our national commissions is our Commission on Justice and Peace. And so today they propose this morning a reflection on the present world economic crisis, its impact in Canada, and what it calls forth in terms of our own response as bishops, as leaders, particularly in the area of social justice. So we had two presenters today. We had Monsieur Pierre Pichet, an economist who basically explained to us how this economic crisis is radically different from any other economic crisis that has been present in the world. He presented some of those consequences here for us in Canada, but what I truly appreciated was the question they asked, is this the crisis of a system, or is this a system that is in crisis? And he said that it's the second. He said fundamentally, beneath the economic crisis, there is a crisis of a system of values. What are the values that pertain to our being together? Alors, cet économiste nous a présenté cette question de fond. Est-ce que c'est notre système économique est en crise, mais ce n'est qu'un symptôme d'une crise plus profonde qui est qu'une crise de valeurs. Et c'est intéressant, il a dit deux choses à faire. C'est d'assurer de meilleurs garde-fous au niveau des structures économiques du monde. Et deuxièmement, de restaurer l'éthique des participants à la vie économique du monde. So he made two recommendations concerning the present economic crisis. One is better safeguards around economic institutions, and the other is to restore a sense of ethics, of virtues, to those who participate in the economy. And in both cases, he quoted documents from the Council for Justice and Peace out of the Vatican. So from the point of an economist, to be quoting Vatican documents was quite impressive. The second presenter was Father Bill Ryan, who's well known, a Jesuit priest, who's well known as a teacher of the social doctrine of the Church. And he pointed out the deep link between the social doctrine of the Church and the new evangelization. And he proceeded to show us how Pope Benedict XVI, in his encyclical on Caritas in Veritate, really presents a way forward for our world when we look at economic issues. Alors, le deuxième intervenant, le Père Bill Ryan, nous a rappelé les principes fondamentaux de la doctrine sociale de l'Église, nous a rappelé comment c'est essentiellement lié à la nouvelle évangélisation et nous a invités aussi à voir dans l'encyclique du pape Caritas in Veritate un outil fondamental dans la réflexion sur la pastorale sociale de l'Église. Un échange très riche qui a suivi par après. Une deuxième commission qui dirige la vie de notre conférence, c'est la commission sur l'écuménisme. Et aujourd'hui, on a regardé justement les collaborations écuméniques dans le travail de la justice sociale en pastorale sociale, surtout à travers de deux groupes écuméniques auxquels la conférence participe, le regroupement Kairos et le regroupement du Conseil des Églises chrétiennes du Canada. So a second commission that leads our work is the Commission on Ecumenism. And our Commission on Ecumenism today led us through a reflection on how, as bishops, we can collaborate ecumenically in social justice endeavors, particularly through the work of Kairos and the Canadian Council of Churches. Now, we've been participating both with Kairos and with the Canadian Council of Churches for many years as a conference, but there are a number of issues that have been raised over the past few years that leads us to reflect again in a critical way on these partnerships. And so we started with a wonderful presentation by Bishop Don Boland, who's a specialist in ecumenical issues. And Bishop Boland reminded us of the principles of ecumenical collaboration in social justice endeavors. He brought out 5 key principles. First, that we need to remember that with other Christians of other denominations, we do have a real communion. Even if it isn't complete, it is a real communion. And it is that real communion that is at the basis of our collaboration. Secondly, that as Catholics, our ecclesiology makes us responsible, in a sense, for this, not makes us responsible, but involves us concretely. Our ecclesiology pushes us towards this type of collaboration because we believe in the vision of a united church in Christ, one church, one body. And so it pushes us in that direction. Thirdly, he reminded us of the role of bishops and of episcopal conferences in that area. Fourth, he reminded us of the essence, the essential aspect of our commitment to social projects. And finally, the necessity for discernment. And Bishop Brendan O'Brien then followed up by bringing up some of the questions for discernment in these partnerships. Following up on that, there was a good discussion. This discussion will continue in the English sector meetings because, particularly with Kairos, is an issue for English Canada in a particular way. So this really nourished our discussion, and it's a discussion that will continue. Alors, la collaboration dans le monde écuménique, dans les questions de justice sociale, un bon échange avec deux très bons experts. Dernière question qu'on a étudiée aujourd'hui, c'est le rapport de développement et paix. Nous avons reçu de Monseigneur Greco, qui représente la Conférence des évêques auprès de Développement et paix, un des 2 membres qui nous représente auprès de Développement et paix. Il nous a rappelé jusqu'à quel point cette année Développement et paix a investi dans la Corne d'Afrique, dans la reconstruction de l'Haïti. Il nous a rappelé l'impact des coupures de l'APDI aussi sur Développement et paix. After Bishop Greco presented a report on the activities of development and peace, we received a report from Bishop Boissonneau, who's a member of the Liaison Committee for OCCDP on the part of the conference. He gave us basically the state of the question right now in that Liaison Committee. And I have to say it was a very positive report in the sense that there's really good work that is being done in developing principles for partnerships for development and peace. And we hope to see that become real in the next few months. Dernière question, nous avons un bon échange autour de la campagne de l'automne, comme vous le savez, qui a révélé la complexité de la question et la diversité des perspectives. Et les évêques se sont entendus pour continuer à travailler cette question dans les journées qui viennent avec le leadership de Développement et paix. Comme je l'avais dit hier, nous sommes d'accord en principe avec une réflexion sur l'implication du Canada dans le développement au tiers-monde. La question, c'est de savoir comment le faire. Voilà, ça résume un peu, en gros, notre journée. So there's an overview of our day together. So the floor is to you. Do you have any questions?
I guess I'll go first. So with the pastoral care in situation of economic crisis. Sounds like there were two very fascinating presentations. Do we see in any of those presentations the seeds of concrete recommendations for how to give pastoral care to people who are suffering as a result of the economic downturn?
I suppose it's not so much concrete recommendations on how to care for people as much as bishops, what should we be doing in terms of the commitment of the church to social justice issues and to care for the poor. I'm looking at my notes here, and I note that Father Ryan in particular made three suggestions. One is that he invited the bishops to remind the people of God of the teaching of Vatican II on the responsibility of the whole Christian community to be involved in the transformation of the world. And in that sense, he asked the question, are our parishes really involved in that? And he says, maybe not, but perhaps we should be fostering the creation of small groups within our parishes, small faith groups who carry that issue in a particular way and who work on issues of social justice at our parish level. The second suggestion he made is that we should really develop our dialogue in a more intentional way with the ecological movements that exist now in the world. The church is developing a very interesting teaching on ecological issues. Pope Benedict XVI has really been a champion of these issues. And so Father Ryan is saying that's an area we should explore more as bishops here in Canada. And the third is he went back to this document that the Commission for Justice and Peace in Rome published last year on the vocation of business leaders. And it's a very interesting document. And he suggested that as bishops, we should be promoting that document with the business leaders in Canada. I took that, I can share with you personally, I took it to heart. I said, when I go back home, I'm going to have to look into this. First, I'll have to read it, because I must admit, we've got so many documents, I just skimmed it. So I think it's a very interesting document from everything I hear. So I want to read it more, and that's the invitation he gave us. And then see how we could perhaps share that document with business leaders and to reflect on an ethical principle for the involvement of people in the business, in economics, in the financial world. Madame.
Moi aussi, je voudrais que vous en disiez plus sur l'échange qui a suivi par rapport à la crise économique.
Oui, l'échange, je peux dire, sur la question de la crise économique, permettez-moi de retrouver mes notes là. Un des points dans l'échange surgissait autour du lien que le père Ryan a fait entre la doctrine sociale de l'Église et la nouvelle évangélisation. Et un des évêques qu'on a élu comme un de nos délégués a fait la remarque dans l'échange qui a suivi que dans l'Instrumentum Laboris, présentement, l'Instrumentum Laboris du synode sur la nouvelle évangélisation, on ne dit pas grand-chose sur la doctrine sociale de l'Église. Et pourtant, il y a des phrases très fortes de Paul VI, de Jean-Paul II, de Benoît XVI, qui rappellent qu'au cœur de l'Église, il y a cette préoccupation pour la transformation du monde et que la doctrine sociale de l'Église fait partie de l'Évangile à annoncer. Et dans ce sens-là, il y a peut-être une invitation, alors que nous réfléchissons à la nouvelle évangélisation, de nous assurer que nous sommes attentifs à cette doctrine sociale de l'Église. Un deuxième point, un autre évêque a fait le commentaire que j'ai trouvé très pertinent personnellement, en lien avec notre plan pastoral pour la vie et la famille. Si le pape Benoît XVI, dans son encyclique Caritas in Veritate, il dit qu'à la base de la vision de l'être humain qui vit en société, il faut qu'il y ait un principe de générosité, un principe de don. Ce principe de générosité, de don, doit faire partie de toute la vie humaine. Il inclut la vie économique, la vie politique, la vie sociale. Mais est-ce que ce n'est pas dans la famille où on apprend ça? Et si dans la famille, on ne vit pas la générosité, si on ne vit pas à partir du don dans la famille, où allons-nous l'apprendre? Ça a été une invitation pour nous de voir le lien profond qu'il y a entre la vie de famille et, comme lieu, on pourrait dire, d'apprentissage, église domestique, disait Jean-Paul II, et la réalité du monde économique qui est la nôtre. Alors, c'est le genre d'échange qu'on a eu.
Archbishop, you mentioned his Beatitude. Shevchuk came and gave a wonderful address and was received very kindly by the bishops. I'm wondering what you made of his reaction to the standing ovation. He sort of put his head down and stood there very still and very quietly.
Yes.
Just some response to that.
I noticed the same thing. I don't know if it's Ukrainian. But he certainly stood there in humility. He's a remarkable man. He's only 42 years old, one of the youngest bishops in the world. And he is the major patriarch, the head, his beatitude, the head of the biggest Byzantine Rite Catholic church in the world. The biggest church sui juris in the Catholic world at the age of 42 years old. And his own history is just remarkable. He grew up under the Soviet regime. He had to do military service under the Soviet regime. He lived his faith underground when it was not allowed because the Ukrainian Catholic Church was forbidden in Ukraine during that time. He studied for the priesthood. He had to leave Ukraine to study for the priesthood. I mean, it is an incredible journey, life journey. And here he is, 42 years old, one of the most important bishops, I think, in the world, coming here to Canada to address us. He spoke very, very highly of the good relationship between the Latin bishops, which are the majority of bishops here in Canada, and the Ukrainian eparchs. And he held up Canada as a model for other countries in that sense. And so I think when he received our ovation, I think he simply took it as not for himself personally, but for what he stood for, which is the whole Ukrainian Catholic Church throughout the world. That's how I understood it. It was a very beautiful moment. I think we have time for one more question.
So you mentioned development and peace was one of the sessions
Yes.
Today. What can you tell us about that in the sense of what do we see as signs of hope there for that situation? What notable developments might there be that we should look for in the future?
Well, I think personally, one of the signs of hope was Bishop Boissonneau's report. Bishop Boissonneau chairs the permanent committee, the standing committee for relations with development and peace. And his report was very positive on the work that has been done, on the work that continues to be done. Development and Peace right now is developing documents that will guide its identification of partners, contracting with partners, the kind of contracts that there are, is working at integrating the teaching of Caritas in Veritate in its work and the training of its members. So he reported on very good progress being done on this, and he was telling us that as bishops we should be receiving these documents soon, which will allow us then to react to them. But there's already been a first reaction and from the committee, and those reactions were taken in, so it's a second version of this. So work is really proceeding well, and that was very affirming. I think in the question around the fall campaign, we had a very good discussion amongst ourselves as bishops. What struck me is, as I was saying earlier, is the complexity of the issue. Canada is a huge country, and the variety of realities that are out there always astounds me whenever I come to the CCCB. And when you hear a bishop say, yes, but this is how this would be lived in our diocese, and then another one says, yes, but this is how it's lived in our diocese, you realize each one is coming with a very different perspective and concerns about how things are perceived. So what came through today, I felt at any rate, was a desire to see Development and Peace continue its educational work and continue to reflect on, particularly on this issue, which is the issue of Canadian involvement in the development of the Third World, but to come to a way that we can do this that will be united across the country and will be received everywhere in the country. And that is, I think, after our discussion, I think we've made a good step forward. And the leadership of Development and Peace, which was there and heard us, I think left with a positive feeling also. So this brings to an end our discussion. Je vous remercie beaucoup de votre présence, à nos auditeurs, nos auditrices sur le web aussi. Je vous salue. Je vous remercie d'être là avec nous et à demain.